Toronto gets the split in Philly, but there is a big problem surrounding this team. So without further ado, let's break this all down. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis. No Nick Goss today. He'll be back really shortly, so don't worry about that. I don't have all the graphics here to play for you, but we are on the road to 1,000 subscribers, so don't forget to hit that sub button, and it helps us out a ton. So let us know what you want to see in the comments down below. Let us know what you think of this type of content, what new content you might want to see. All feedback, all criticism is welcome, and thank you so much for watching. So, the Toronto Blue Jays, they play in Citizens Bank Park against the Philadelphia Phillies, who've lost 4 in a row coming into this 2-game set. They take the first one, an 18-11 barn burner. It was, just both teams could not pitch. They could not execute their pitches, and it was pretty evident in the scoreline. Everyone kind of chipped in. Everyone got a hit in the lineup. People got multiple hits. It was an overall game that just shows what kind of potential this Blue Jays offense has and that explodability that they have. And they were able to put 18 runs on the board. That's fantastic. That's phenomenal. The 11, it's not so great, but I guess you're due for a game like that after playing so many close ball games in succession. You can't win them all pretty, and this was a much-needed win for the Blue Jays. It added a little bit more separation. And there's a couple notes that I do want to touch on. I mean, Matt Chapman looks really good at the plate right now. I saw this stat where he's in the 99th percentile for hard hit rate and the 99th percentile for chase rate. So he doesn't chase, and he hits the ball as hard as anybody in the majors. So he's really started to come on. He's been one of their most consistent players over the past 2-3 months. You hear Buck Martinez say it. You hear Pat Tabler say it. You hear Dan Shulman say it on the broadcast. He has been one of their most consistent players since June. So that's a great sign, and Matt Chapman's really important to this ball club. So if he can keep doing what he's doing heading into the playoffs, that's great. It bodes well for the offense. But the pitching lately has not been good, and particularly the bullpen. Now, Ross Stripling had a bit of a rough start, only went 5 innings, gave up 5 runs. It was not his best, and he was due for one. He's been so good all year long. He can't be perfect. He can't. So, it's okay. I'm not worried about Ross Stripling. He was just getting hit a little bit. They were hitting some good pitches, too. Bryce Harper hit one at his shins, practically. Drove in a run, and it was just an offensive-minded ball game, and that's fine. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But the problem for me was Game 2, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Just another quick shout-out to Raimel Tapia, who has a knack for the big hit. He has been one of the unsung heroes this year for the Toronto Blue Jays. He got that triple in Game 1. He got 3 RBIs in that game. He just seems to come up in the big situations, and he does a great job. So shout out to Raimel Tapia. Julian Merriweather out of the pen. Not a high leverage situation, not much pressure on him. Huge lead. But I don't know what his role on this team is going to be going forward, because the bullpen has been really poor. Now, unless you're throwing Merriweather in there in like a bulk situation, off in like an innings day, then that's the only way that's gonna work, I think, because you can't throw him in there in high leverage. He hasn't shown the ability to be able to handle that. And might I say, Nate Pearson, he might be on the way. He might be coming. He's been pitching great in AAA. He looks like his old self again, and I think he would be a welcomed addition to this bullpen. They have been struggling big time. So now let's move on here to Game 2. There were a lot of things that I didn't like, and a lot of things that I did like. First off, we'll start with the good. So, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., probably the best swing that I've seen him have in a couple months, honestly. That was one of the hardest hit balls that he's had all year, and it was an absolute nuke. It was a missile into the left field stands, and that was great. It was great to see. Hopefully it's a sign of more things to come of that nature, because Vladdy is the most talented hitter on this team, bar none. He's a superstar hitter. He's one of the best hitters in the world, and he showed that last year, finishing second in MVP voting, and I really think he can get back to that form. And in a down year, this is a down year for Vladdy. He still has 30 home runs. He still has 88 RBI. He's still hitting over 280. It's just crazy how talented this guy is and how much we expect from him as Jays fans. So he is having a tough year by his standards, by his lofty standards. But I guess you do that to yourself when you finish second in MVP voting and have 40-plus home runs, 100-plus RBIs, bat over 300. You set yourself up for failure if you don't repeat in that next season. And another thing that I liked, Tim Meza, who I think would have been the MVP of this series if we were able to hold on to that lead in Game 2. We weren't, unfortunately, but Tim Meza gets out of a jam, first and third, 1 out. He strikes out Rhys Hoskins, the number 2 hitter on the Philadelphia Phillies, and then he strikes out Bryce Harper, the number 3 hitter on the Philadelphia Phillies, who won the MVP last year. Now, that was a gutsy performance by Tim Meza. He looked great in that situation. He's been really good in his past, I think, 8.5 innings. He's been unbelievable for the Blue Jays. So it's great to see Tim Meza do what he's doing, because he is a lefty. We don't have many of those in the pen, and he's been great as of late. Another thing that I did like to see was Matt Chapman, who made a great play, and we've come to expect it at this point. He's won the award for the Mitch White GQ sexiest play pretty much every series that we've introduced it. So he has been unbelievable with the glove. He's starting to find it at the plate. He's a great player, and I hope we hold on to him for a while, because it seems as though he's still in his prime, and he's just a great player. And Whit Merrifield, we spoke about it, Nick and I, in another video, in the last video, I think. We'd like to see Whit Merrifield play a little bit more, just because of his track record, because of his veteran presence, and he is a good player. Despite what anybody says, he's still a 2-time All-Star, and he's still a very solid player. But there is one stat that I saw that really stood out to me, and it has nothing to do with Whit Merrifield. But the Blue Jays are 15-2 when Whit Merrifield is not playing. And they have a sub 400 record when Whit Merrifield is in the lineup. Now, all that has nothing to do with Whit Merrifield. I don't think he has lost them games. However, it just so happens that whenever Whit Merrifield is in the starting lineup, the bullpen seems to have a meltdown, or the starters can't get it done. Now, I think, especially with the way that the Jays have been clicking on all cylinders, I feel like you could try to find a spot for Whit Merrifield and give him that opportunity to really show what he can do, because I think he has more potential than Biggio right now. I don't like what Biggio is doing at the plate. Kevin Biggio has looked lost. And I mean, when is this guy, when is he going to reach his potential? When is Kevin Biggio going to become that Kevin Biggio that was one of the top prospects for the Blue Jays? I just don't see it ever happening. How many chances are we going to give the guy before we say, okay, maybe we've got to try to move in a different direction? He's 27 years old. He hasn't had much success at the major league level, and he struggled to stay in the lineup, and that's the bottom line. So I'd like to see Whit Merrifield in there instead of Kevin Biggio at this moment in time. Or even Espinal. I'd love to see Santiago Espinal in there instead of Kevin Biggio. And I know he got banged up a little bit in Game 2. he had to leave. Let's hope he's okay, and let's hope he can return to the lineup soon. Now let's move on here to the things that I did not like in Game 2. And the first one was pinch hitting Danny Jansen in the 7th inning. Now you do have 3 catchers on your roster, but Alejandro Kirk was catching in this game. So if you have to pinch hit for him later, pinch run for Alejandro Kirk later, that means you got to send in Gabriel Moreno in there to catch. A guy with less than 15 games in the big leagues. You're expecting him to go out there in a high leverage situation and manage that pitching staff. And that's exactly what happened. That is exactly what happened. So Danny Jansen goes in there in the 7th inning. He pinch hits for Raimel Tapia because there's a lefty on the mound. So whatever. That's fine, I guess. But then the situation comes up in the next inning where Jackie Bradley Jr. had to go back on for Danny Jansen, and then he's hitting with the bases loaded and 1 out. That is not what you want. You can't have that. You can't have Jackie Bradley Jr. come up with the bases loaded in a high leverage situation against a lefty. You can't have that. Anyways, that's the first thing that really ticked me off. And for Gabriel Moreno, he had to come in after Bradley Zimmer pinch ran for Kirk. So you're sending Gabriel Moreno, a rookie with less than 20 games of experience in the big leagues, you're sending him out there to go catch for Alejandro Kirk in the bottom of the 10th. High leverage situation. Tie game. One of the most crucial games of the season. You're sending a rookie out there and you trust him to call the game, to make those decisions. That I didn't like the managing by John Schneider. I thought it was one of his worst performances as a Blue Jays manager. But I still have full faith in him, and it's okay. I mean, it's one game. You can't overreact, but just the way that they lost and the way that they lost against Baltimore in that final game, they were so similar. They were so similar, and it kind of makes you worry a little bit about the bullpen. And who I'm worried about is Anthony Bass. Where is Anthony Bass? He hasn't pitched in the last 4 games. Now, I gotta believe that there's an injury somewhere there, and he's just not injured enough to be put on the injured list. We can't afford to do that at this moment in time. But John Schneider, after the game, said he was available, but we liked Adam Simber in that spot more. So let me get that straight. You like Adam Simber more in the bottom of the 10th inning with a runner on second base. So a non-strikeout pitcher, a pitch to contact pitcher. You like him more than Anthony Bass, who has been your best reliever besides Jordan Romano ever since we got him at the trade deadline. That doesn't make much sense to me. There's got to be something more there in the sense that you can't go with Adam Simber in that situation. And so you're telling me the past 4 games you haven't liked a single situation where you could put Anthony Bass in there. In the last 4 games, you don't think there was a suitable situation for Anthony Bass. That doesn't make sense to me. It does not make sense to me. I'm glad I'm making this video at this time right now, the day after the debacle, if you want to call it, by the Toronto Blue Jays, because it was one of the more frustrating losses that I've witnessed in the past 5 years for this team. It was frustrating all around, and nothing was going their way. It was just terrible. It was a terrible watch. It was a terrible watch, honestly. It was a grind. It was a 4+ hour game, and it was so tough. Bullpen has not looked good. Let's call it what it is, and they need Anthony Bass to be healthy. And I'm not buying what John Schneider is saying, that he's fine and it's not a big deal. It seems to be a big deal, because why would you not put one of your best relievers in a high leverage situation? Doesn't make sense to me. Nate Pearson looks to be on the horizon for this ball club, the way that the bullpen has been performing. So, thank you so much for making it this far. I really appreciate it. Nick Goss will be back, so don't worry about that. Let me know what you thought of this video. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Helps us out a ton. We are on the road to 1K. There's going to be no awards for this video, just for the simple fact that there deserves to be none. There deserves to be none. It was such a disappointing end to the 2-game set, and it really looked like a great opportunity for the Jays to separate themselves even more. Now, they didn't lose any games on the Seattle Mariners and the Tampa Bay Rays, as they both lost last night as well. But it was a good opportunity to get a little bit more separation, and the Yankees won, so we're now 6.5 games back of the New York Yankees, so it looks as though we will not be catching them for the AL East, and we're going for that wild card one. So thank you so much for watching, and until next time.